As we wrap up the month of April, South Africa commemorating 3 decades since the last political prisoner left Robben Island. That island was home to many prominent names, such as the country's first democratic president, Nelson Mandela, of course. One of those who spent almost a decade there is Sifiso Buthelezi, who is now a member of parliament and chairperson of the Standing Committee on Appropriation. Mr. Buthelezi, good morning to you. What a pleasure speaking to you. I say what a pleasure speaking to you. It's always fascinating to hear from someone who had spent incorrectly and wrongfully so long a time of their life on this island. As you look back 3 days ago, 27th of April, is it a day of happiness or sadness for you?
Hi, Gareth and the ENCA viewers. I was arrested in 1984 and got released in 1991, but only arrived on the island in 1986. Is tried in solitary confinement. You are saying, is it a moment of perhaps jubilation or sadness? I think for me, the main thing is that what took me and many other comrades to Robben Island, which was to try and get a democratic government where the people of South Africa could decide the government that they want. And that we have. As we are talking now, we're having a government where you can stand up, Gareth, at any time and criticize from the president to anybody, and without any fear that you may end up with solitary confinement. And a lot of strides again that those of us and other people who struggled during those days, we can point to. I heard you, for instance, talking about what we are seeing there, the question of the queues which we are seeing because people are going for grants. Those grants have been made possible because of this democracy, with the challenges that we're having. So for me, I'm just saying that the main thing that we're having today is that the people of this country, irrespective of their race, gender, or creed, can decide the government that they want.
Mr. Buthelezi, I'm going to ask you to take me back all those years, if it's okay, just off the back of Freedom Day, 27th of April. The day you came out, the day you physically walked off the island, got on the ferry and arrived back in Cape Town Harbour. Just take me through that day. What were your emotions?
Let me start by saying that I came out of the Robben Island being a different person. I had an opportunity to mix with the stalwarts of our revolution. I had an opportunity of meeting with people like Comrade Truman Makubane, Gizenga Mpanza, Wormkov, Wilton Mkwai, you name them, Harry Gwala. And those people saw us as children. I think when I arrived on the island, I was about 23 years old, as their children, who they needed to guide and teach them about the ups and downs of the revolution. So I'm just saying that when I came out of Robben Island, I was definitely a different person. It was quite an emotional day for me, because after 1990, after Madiba's release, we never had days of release. I would say it depended on the whims of the powers that be as to when they are going to release you. So as you can see, I only got released in 1991. That is exactly 12 months after Madiba's release. So throughout that year, you had emotions which were going up and down, not knowing when you are going to be released. So when I was released, it was mixed emotions, because I was leaving some of my comrades behind, and I was going to the South Africa that I didn't know. And you know, at that time, it was a very tumultuous situation in our country. Me coming from KwaZulu-Natal, again, there was a question of violence in that province. Again, I didn't know the type of South Africa that we're going into. But what happened when I got released, Gareth, I had studied on Robben Island. I did my first degree, a BCom in accounting and economics on Robben Island. And that's why I say I came out being a different person. And for me ending up doing economics, thanks to Comrade Wormkov, who encouraged me to do economics. In fact, his thinking was simple, that you guys want to change this economy, but you don't understand it. So I ended up doing economics. So when I came out of Robben Island, I ended up being a student at UCT, where I had to start a BCom honors and a master's in economics. So all those things, I think it was because of the people who I found myself around, who had worked on what my parents had given me. So I'm saying there was those mixed emotions, as I've told you, that there were a lot of unknowns. But I thought that my stay on Robben Island and the stay of these other comrades had equipped us to deal with whatever challenges that we're going to face. And I'm happy here I am today, and being part of the people who are trying to solve the problems of our country.
Mr. Buthelezi, in the last couple of minutes I have with you, I would like your thoughts, if it's okay, on the reports. I'm sure you've seen these reports about the buildings on Robben Island apparently decaying, they're in ruin. And while it's not a place of happiness, of course, it's incredibly significant for South Africa's history. It's a World Heritage Site. It's a National Heritage Site. Are you aware of what the infrastructure looks like, and what's your opinion about those reports that apparently many of the buildings are in ruin?
I have not been to the island, I think, for more than 10 years. As you know, it becomes a very mixed emotions again when you go there. But I think, again, with the challenges that the country is having, you saw that I'm part of the people, I chair the appropriations committee. I think we should, all of us, come together. It should not just be the responsibility of the government. It is the heritage of all the people of South Africa, Africa, and the world. That's where Mandela stayed. I think we need to come together and make sure that how can we put the heads together and make sure that the Robben Island becomes what it's supposed to be, the world iconic place.
Perhaps I can ask one more question. I've got a couple of seconds with you. I'd love your thoughts on this. You're obviously based down in Cape Town. Do you ever find yourself standing perhaps on top of Table Mountain and looking over to Robben Island, or do you actively avoid looking at it and bringing back those memories, or do you stand and stare sometimes at Robben Island?
Yes, I do, and I'll tell you some of my thoughts. For instance, on New Year's Day, when you're on the island, you could hear the sound, the noises coming from the mainland. But at that time, I would be looking to the mainland through a very small window. But now, since I'm in this new South Africa, I would be standing on top of Table Mountain from outside and looking on Robben Island and say that's where some of the greatest ideas came out, because that's where Mandela and other icons spent their place. That's where the ideas of the South Africa that we're having were also discussed. So I definitely do that and remember those days and say at that time I couldn't be free to be on top of the mountain. But here I am today. Because of the struggles of the people of South Africa and the world, I'm able to stand there and look at the place which once incarcerated not just me, but the biggest minds in the world, including Madiba, including Uwom Gov, including Wilton Mkwai, Truman Makuban, and so on and so forth. So I do, Gareth.
I appreciate.
And I do also say to my children, the history of this country, I think if it wasn't for this Robben Island, it would be different.
I think many people, in fact everybody, would probably agree with you on that. Sifiso Buthelezi, I thank you for your time in taking me back into Robben Island all those years ago, having spent almost a decade on Robben Island. Such a pleasure speaking to you about your experience. MP Sifiso Buthelezi, now a Member of Parliament and Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Appropriation, can speak